was a child, I remember a few lessons from church school. They all tried to impress upon me who Jesus Christ was and what he did in his earthly ministry. But to be honest, I'm not sure I really understood how all of those stories I heard came together. I knew Jesus was special. I knew he was important. I knew he worked miracles and had disciples. But Christmas and Easter were still kind of a mystery to me, until I went to seminary. There I learned that it is all about Jesus Christ. Through him our lives have meaning. Through him we have hope. As my uncle Protadenis once said to me, it's all about Jesus. Jesus our Lord. So this year we're going to focus on knowing Jesus Christ and building up a relationship with him through the Holy Church. And while we learn about who he is, we're going to learn more about who we are. And I hope by the end of the year that we can set aside some of our fear and anxiety in this life, because it's certainly an anxious time in which we live, by knowing Jesus. Because through him we have hope in place of sadness, and through him we can find courage in place of our fear. And that starts today with the lesson on the Feast of the Holy Cross. So here's a quick synopsis of the Old Testament for all of you, in case you're a little rusty on your Old Testament. God created humans in his own image, and that image was eternal and it was life. But humankind decided to go our own way. We separated ourselves from our Creator by our own choices, and for thousands of years, as we separated ourselves from God, we found only death. Of course, as any loving Father, our Lord God kept forgiving us. As humankind sinned and turned away, he kept giving us opportunities and chances to turn back to his love. He gave us prophets to show us the way. He chastised us when we did harm to creation and to each other, and he even freed us from bondage over and over again. But still we kept turning from him. But like a loving Father, such was the depth of his love for us and for his creation, that he was steadfast in his love and he stuck by us. So God's people, Israel, began looking for the day when God would finally deliver them to the promised land, because they'd been mired in death and difficulty for so long. They looked for that day when he would not only receive them back, but would bring them to victory over all those who would conquer and defeat them. So where does our Lord Jesus Christ enter this picture? Well, humanity had been changed by generations of sin. We were subject now to death. We died, and death swallowed us up, because we weren't really the humans as God intended us. But then one person, Mary, lived such a sinless life and followed God's will so much that she could bring into this world God incarnate, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. He was finally that perfect human. He was as human as you and I. And Jesus was that Messiah, the anointed one that humanity waited for thousands of years to finally deliver us. But he wasn't quite the deliverer that we expected. Israel expected someone to conquer, to reign, to lead them to victory here on this earth. But Jesus did not come to grant earthly victory. He came to give us eternal victory and a movement into the true promised land of paradise. He came to unite heaven to earth, and this day we celebrate the item that finally accomplished that task, the Holy Cross, which brought those two things, heaven and earth, together. See, our Lord Jesus Christ voluntarily allowed himself, completely innocent, to be killed on the cross. He offered himself completely and obediently to God on behalf of all of us and for all of us. And when he died, death swallowed up a man, 100% a man. But it also swallowed up 100% God incarnate. And death could not swallow up the eternal God. Death could not swallow up the source of life. It ate something it could not eat, and it got sick. So sick that it could not contain our Lord, who, although he died, then rose from the dead. And so he defeated death by death itself. He entered into the very home of death, and death couldn't keep him there. And so, through his death on the cross, although it looked like a defeat to some, humankind found a way to recover that true image of humanity. We can become human again. Humans who act like Christ, the true model of humanity. People who forgive, who take care of each other, who sacrifice for each other. People who, when we encounter death one day, death will not be able to consume. So for us, in our life, it is all about Jesus Christ. He is the way to true and lasting life. And through the holy cross of our Lord, heaven and earth, which were once disconnected, are brought together once again. So this week's discussion questions are at home, and I would encourage parents, children, aunts, uncles, grandparents, whoever's in the house to sit around and discuss these questions. What does it mean to sacrifice? What does it mean to sacrifice for someone else? What are some examples of life in a family of sacrifice? How does that look in a family setting? And what about outside of the family, at school or out in our community? How do we sacrifice, and how does that give life to other people? Second, what does it mean to be a human? Try to think about how Jesus acted and the stories that we know about him from Sunday gospel readings, from church school, any readings that we know and anything that we know. How does Jesus show us and teach us what it means to be a human and who we really are? So I hope you have some good discussions at home. If you have any questions or you want to maybe include me in that discussion, feel free to send me an email, a text message, carrier pigeon, any way you can get a hold of me, and I will be happy to set up a Zoom meeting with me and your family, and we can go over some of these questions together. God bless you, and God willing, we will see you next week with another lesson from one of our wonderful church school teachers.